Hello, this PowerPoint is about Shylock and I'd like you to use it to learn some of the quotations that you will find useful to write about him. I've also included on this slide, as you can see, some of the themes that you might be asked to write about. So it might not be just Shylock, it might be to do with Shylock on money or religion, law and justice, promises, bonds, revenge and hatred. So here we have our quotations, and they're quotations I've chosen. You may well decide that there are other important quotations from Shylock that you've chosen to use, but these are the ones I think will help. And you see down the left hand side we've got the beginning, the middle and the end. I'm going to read my quotations from left to right and they will take us through the play. I'm going to start with the shaded question, and each time you see a slide it's the same slide, but I will have shaded the quotation and just talk a little bit about what each one means. And you can think about how you might use it and write about it. So you can see that first one says, I hate him, for he is a Christian. Here Shylock is talking about somebody very specific, isn't he? He's talking about Antonio. We've got a powerful verb there, we've got the word hate, but then Shakespeare does something interesting. By the end of the line we've got the word Christian. So we've got the word hate and we've got the word Christian in the same sentence. So here Shakespeare is using antithesis. We've got these two opposite ideas, and it's a strange idea that you can hate somebody because they're a Christian in Shylock's eyes. And he says, for he is a Christian. The idea that it's obvious. I hate him because he's a Christian. It seems to be the most obvious thing he should think. And notice we don't get Antonio's name. He can't bear to say it. Our next quotation. If I can but catch him once upon the hip, I will feed fat the ancient grudge I bear him. First thing I want you to notice about this is just how many single syllable words there are in this sentence. It's very short and punchy, helps to show that he's angry. He's thinking about what he can do to Antonio. If I can but catch him out, trick him, then that's what he's going to do. And he uses this phrase, I will feed fat the ancient grudge I bear him. Feed fat. Again, this is all about how it sounds just as much as what it means. Feed fat is fricative alliteration. Those same sounds used makes him sound angry. He believes that it's going to make his ancient grudge, he's going to feed it, or even to make it worse perhaps, to make it grow. Okay, and just as a little sideline, Shakespeare likes this phrase. This ancient grudge appears at the beginning of Romeo and Juliet as well. It's this idea that hatred doesn't go away. Characters just can't seem to escape the fact that they hate each other. Here Shylock is talking to Antonio. For sufferance is the badge of all our tribe. You call me misbeliever, cutthroat dog, and spit upon my Jewish gabardine. Here sufferance is obviously suffering, and he uses the word badge, the badge of all our tribe. In other words, it's something that makes it obvious. People expect us to suffer. People know that we suffer because it's an outward thing that you can see. You can see that we suffer. And he's using the word tribe. You can replace that word tribe with the Jewish people. And then he talks about what they call him, and we begin to see that actually Shylock is abused. You call me misbeliever, that I'm wrong in what I believe. I'm a cutthroat dog. That's to do with his money lending practices. And they spit on him, and they spit on his Jewish gabardine. His Jewish gabardine is his big long cloak that he wears. So he talks about some of the things that happen to him. But he suffers, and he suffers because it's almost expected of him. Number 4, I've just included this little quotation from Lancelot, one of the minor characters in the play, and Shylock's clown, who says, the Jew, the very devil incarnation. Now it speaks quite a lot that even this very lowly character feels brave enough to say something about this character, and again not use his name. This is his master, this is his employer, this is his boss, and he still calls him the Jew. And the very devil incarnation, this is the devil walking the earth, this is the devil inside Shylock, which is certainly not something Shylock would believe. Number 5, I'm not bid for love, they flatter me, but yet I'll go in hate to feed upon the prodigal Christian. Here Shylock's talking to his daughter Jessica about being invited by the Christians, led mostly by Antonio, but including Salanio and Salarino and all those others, that he knows that they're flattering him, that they want something off of him, and so he knows that. So it shows you that he's wise, he's not silly, he knows he's not going there because they like him. But notice that he says, yet I'll go in hate. So he knows that, and maybe the word hate's interesting. Is it his hatred or their hatred? But he's going to go anyway, because he sees them as wasteful. He calls them prodigal Christians, that he's going to feed them. It's their loss, it's their foolishness. If they're prepared to feed someone who they hate, he's not going to turn that down. He sees that as a benefit. It's the banker in him, it's the moneylender in him. The idea that he sees this as some sort of profit. Now you need to be careful with quotation number 6, because lots of students believe that this is straight out of Shylock's mouth. It's not. It's spoken actually by Salanio, and he says, "I never heard a passion so confused. Oh my daughter, oh my ducats, oh my daughter." But of course he's quoting Shylock. He's talking about the fact that Shylock's been heard in the streets wailing and moaning and crying and deeply upset. But he's talking, and Salanio is very clever here. He talks about the idea of a passion confused. What does Shylock really love? Is it his daughter or is it his money? This quotation goes on, and if you count how many times he says daughter and how many times he says ducats, he says ducats more. So it might suggest that it's his money that bothers him more. But it's a passion so confused. So this is a man in deep turmoil because his daughter Jessica, as he sees it, been stolen, run away from him, because she no longer wants to lead a life with him. Number 7, my own flesh and blood to rebel. This is Shylock talking to his friend Tubal. I say friend, he's an acquaintance. We don't really see Shylock open up too much to anybody. But he talks about his own flesh and his blood. And these are kind of the themes of the play, aren't they? We've got the word flesh, as in pound of flesh, and we've got the word blood. And that's the thing that finally undoes Shylock at the end of this play, because he can cut some flesh, but he's not allowed to spill any blood. And here, it's almost like a foreshadowing of that event, the idea that Jessica has run away. She's his own flesh and blood. He sees her as him. He feels like a part of him. He's no longer Jewish, that has rejected him and has decided to be a Christian. This idea of being rebellious. Okay, to rebel is to go against everything that is part of the rules for living. Quotation 8, a famous quotation, hath not a Jew eyes. This is part of a much longer quotation, and you can see I've added another part. If you prick us, do we not bleed? This is Shylock talking to the Christians. Any Christian who will listen, he's trying to make them understand that he is as human as them. Each of the questions he asks is a rhetorical question, because all of the answers are very obvious to anyone who is sensible, and he's just trying to point out the ridiculousness of them treating him differently because he is Jewish. Now there could be lots of interpretations, ways of thinking about number 9. I would my daughter were dead at my foot and the jewels in her ear. Would here means wish. I wish my daughter were dead at my foot and the jewels in her ear. Now you might say, who would be a father here? Because this is a complicated idea, I think. Shylock wants his daughter back, and I think he'd prefer to know where she was, even if she was dead, and be at his foot right in front of him where he could see her. And a complicated bit is this idea of the jewels in her ear, as if he could just bend down, reach down and pluck at her ear and regain the things that he believes Jessica has taken from him. Okay, that's the main idea of this. But there's another, which could be that he's talking about the jewel being in his daughter as if she wouldn't hear him. She wouldn't hear him talking sense, that she's been maybe her ideas have been changed and she won't hear any of his clever comments because money has got in the way and blocked her ears. That's another way of looking at it. Number 10 is my favourite quote. Thou calledst me dog before thou hadst cause, but since I am a dog, beware my fangs. Here Shylock is basically saying, you've always called me a dog and you had no reason to do that before thou hadst cause. That's what it means. But then he says, but since I'm a dog and since you treat me like one, which is what he means, you're going to need to beware my fangs. And really he's saying, if you treat people like dogs, you should not be surprised if we behave like it, and you should beware us. You should be very aware that we will behave as animals if you treat us as animals. Number 11 is a classic example of Shylock, stubborn and unmoved by anything that is said to him. He believes he is right. He believes that Antonio should pay the forfeit, a pound of flesh, for failing to pay him back his 3,000 ducats on time. He says, I'll have my bond. I will not hear thee speak. Which is very simple. He is not interested in anything they have to say. All that time is over. He believes that he is owed what he is owed. I'll have my bond. I will not hear thee speak. There is no debate in those things. There is no conversation to be had. He believes he's right and he doesn't want to waste his time on argument. Shylock tells the court, more than a lodged hate and a certain loathing I bear Antonio, that I follow thus a losing suit against him. Here, he's just trying to explain to the court why he's doing what he's doing. He doesn't think they'll understand. He doesn't think they'll ever work it out. But he's talking about lodged hate. If something is lodged, it's fixed, it's stuck. He can't get rid of it. He can't do anything about it. And it's against Antonio, and there's nothing he can do. Notice he uses the word follow. In other words, it's something that he's being led by. There's nothing he can do about it. And he even talks about it being a losing suit. He's still lost the 3,000. He could take it. He could take it now, but he's not going to. He's going to lose the money, but get what he said he was always going to be after, which was a pound of flesh. Number 13, if every ducat in 6,000 ducats were in 6 parts, and every part a ducat, I would not draw them. I would have my bond. Here is an example of Shylock's speech, and it's a way that Shakespeare has chosen to portray Shylock by getting him to repeat things. It sounds very organised, like a banker, somebody counting their money. And you can see that there's lots of repetition. If every ducat in 6 ducats, 6 parts, every part. I would not, I would have. All these phrases are to show that he's very careful when he speaks, and he's very mathematical in his thinking, which is, I suppose, why there's very little feeling in him when he comes to deal with the bond. This is an example of the mathematical, non-caring Shylock. Shylock says, my deeds upon my head, I crave the law. This is very straightforward. He's prepared to accept the consequences for what he wants. On my head be it. That's literally what it means. But then he says, I crave the law, and the really important word is crave. To crave something is to be absolutely obsessed with it. You yearn for it, you desire it, you need it. And he's trying to point out that it's the law that matters to him. It's what he said he wanted. It's what he believes he deserves, because he's got a bond, and the bond is everything to him. Now we need to remember that Portia brings Shylock literally and metaphorically to his knees. And in this slide, when he realizes he's losing, he says, you take my life when you do take the means whereby I live. He's forbidden to own property. The only way he can make money is by using money, or it's one of the few ways anyway. And he knows that by taking away his money, by taking away his funds, he will not be able to function. And he's trying to explain that him and money and Shylock, they're kind of interlinked. You take my life whereby I live. These phrases, they mix together, and they kind of prove that Shylock and money are one and the same thing. The final slide is Shylock's final words. I pray you give me leave to go from hence. I am not well. Send the deed after me and I will sign it. The first bit, I pray you give me leave to go from hence, just means from here. He wants to leave the courtroom. He doesn't want to be looking at these people who are basically making fun of him because he's lost. He tells him he's not well. I'm not sure whether he wants any sympathy for that, but I don't think he's going to get any. I suspect that the events have caught up with him and he realises that everything has been taken away from him. The really important bit is the last part, where he says, send the deed after me and I will sign it. I want you to think about this word will. It's one of the key themes of the play. What do people want? What is their will? If you think about Portia right at the beginning, her living will, what she wants being alive, is being controlled by the will of a dead father. In other words, what her father decided would happen before he died, to keep her safe, to protect her from people who just wanted her money and her riches. So it's part of the overall big picture of the story, this idea of a will. And here he's given in. He's going to do exactly what anyone asks for him. I will sign it. And notice, signing something is a promise. And Shylock has entered into a promise, and I suspect he will keep it.